and I'm a full, warm-blooded Igbo son. And so I come to this saying that sometimes we talk about these issues, we don't ask what is at the bottom of the Nigerian challenge. Inclusion is fundamental to progress in any society. Revenues do not make rich. What makes rich is production. And because these people are arguing to put some revenue money in their own personal pockets, they have made a very productive part of the country poorer. It's a time to talk. It's a time to speak truth to power and to one another. But it's also a time to recognize that we all come from a shared humanity. I come from the great privilege of having been born in northern Nigeria, had my primary education in northern Nigeria, of going to school in Ibadan. I like to define myself as an Ibadan boy. My secondary education in Ibadan. In fact, Dr. Olajide, who is sitting there, is my senior from Loyola College, Ibadan. And I went to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and I'm a full, warm-blooded Igbo son. And so I come to this saying that sometimes we talk about these issues, we don't ask what is at the bottom of the Nigerian challenge. When we talk about restructuring, people sometimes get carried away about revenues, sharing, and all of that. The bottom line is that we lost the direction of leadership because we made politics a place that you can make money. And restructuring is about getting money out of politics. Anybody who wants to serve and give sacrificially of himself to elevate the life of others should come into politics. Anybody who wants to become somebody because of politics should get out of it. Yeah. This is what has brought us to this sorry pass. If it were not that problem, people are playing on ethnic sentiments to abuse the treasury. And let me give two simple examples of how emotions are overcoming our ability to understand our problems. Akwadike has just been introduced as a Harvard scholar, but I was introducing him recently to another Harvard scholar called Joshua Green. Joshua Green runs the Center for Moral Cognition at Harvard. And Joshua Green has studied the problem of human collaboration, cooperation. And combining psychology, philosophy, and neuroscience, they have come to a certain number of conclusions. And this has been outlined in the book, Moral Tribes, Reason, Emotion, and the Gap Between Us and Them. So when we raise these emotions and take out rational conversation, people who want to use that to make for their own self-interest being advanced, sometimes against the interest of those that they are arguing ostensibly for, use those things. One simple example that I keep asking myself, why do we've been talking about headsmen creating problems everywhere. I give an example just put forward by a man who was chief economic advisor to our president only recently, Dr. Tanimu Yakubu. He served as commissioner in Katsina State. When he got to the job, he found that the biggest problem Katsina State had to do with fertilizers. Fertilizers were sucking life out of the budget of Katsina State. So he set up a little study, commissioned consultants. Farmers, what's your biggest problem? Fertilizers came to 13 in the listing. Number one was desert encroachment. What is the biggest cause of desert encroachment? Open grazing. So 20 years ago, the government of Katsina State, not the government of Enugu State, realized that the biggest problem before them was open grazing. But today, people are emotionally using it to curry whatever political power they want for their self-interest, arguing against the interest of the people they're totally trying to project. I have made this argument again on the subject of what makes people angry about restructuring, which is revenue allocation. I don't have the time to go into local governments, how there were twice as many, two times as many in the South as they were in the North in the 60s. But once local governments became part of the fiscal transfer system, people who had power cornered so much, every village they had became a local government. Now we have 774 local governments in our country. A bulk of it belongs to a part of the country, but that part of the country has gotten poorer steadily. It proves a point that economists have studied for years. If you want, you can go and read some of Sowell's book on politics, wealth, and power. Revenues do not make rich. What makes rich is production. And because these people are arguing to put some revenue money in their own personal pockets, they have made a very productive part of the country poorer. This is why we must move to rational public conversation rather than emotions, which is the tragedy of the Nigerian condition. We must turn to people of intellect and knowledge to provide leadership to a country. China was flat on its belly. Nigeria's GDP per capita was twice that of China when a man called Deng Xiaoping emerged as leader of that country. If you read his speech in December of 1978 to the people of China, so we must enthrone knowledge as the reason for making progress. Our party must put people of knowledge to lead us forward. So, unfortunately for Nigeria, the Nigerian political class has actually very sadly made knowledge seem like a bad thing. Now grammar will go chop, now theory, and our country has continued to decline because we insult knowledge. When we say that leadership is the problem of Nigeria, every speaker has said so, and there's no question about that. What is leadership? The great guru of this subject, the now late Stephen R. Covey, I've had the privilege of sharing the podium with him, says that there are two dimensions that are fundamental to leadership: knowledge and a sense of service. People who have knowledge and can sacrificially give of themselves for the advance of the common good of all, in the hope that their name will thrive in immortality, are the people who should lead. And our failure to do that in our country is what has reduced us. We must do that with fairness in mind, with equity in mind. Inclusion is fundamental to progress in any society. And I'll round up in a second. Inclusion. Look at us here today. How many young people are there in this hall? And yet, 70% of our population are under the age of 35. But how many are there here? The same thing with everything. In 1948, an American called Thomas Kingsley wrote a book on representative bureaucracy and became the basis for affirmative action. No society that excludes from positions of play a group of its people can hope to have sustainable effectiveness in advance of that nation. This is why the best person must be chosen. The person that feels and knows the country well must be chosen, but that person has to be inclusive of any group of people who have been excluded. That's the way that you make progress in the country.